dinim of Shabbos that deal with the items that are forbidden to discuss, to speak about in Shabbos. Isur of Dibur on Shabbos, which is shaykh to the pet, to the mouth. At the same time, we want to speak about the mouth. In another respect, what is forbidden to go into the mouth on Pesach. Items that are unkosher. The Gemara says there are things that are pet. The mouth, which is the malchus, of course, has two kinds of isurim. That which goes in, that which comes out. The food that you take, and the output, for those who know, the mouth, the output of words that are also like Torah and so forth, or Masalat Mishabas. Now, since we are very close to Pesach, just a brief discussion of those items that you have to purchase. You must buy for Pesach. Above all, make sure that you buy things that are kosher to Pesach, not because of the brand name, not because of the fancy prices, which are definitely a crime in itself, that these companies dare to overcharge so much. You must be very careful about buying food, the foods that are, as much as there is an importance in kashrus, there also is an importance in the kedusha of the money. Jewish money is very important, very holy. Torah is didactic and makpid on the value of Jewish money, so that it should not be wasted unnecessarily. If you can buy kosher food that does not have the stamp of approval of the certain ones whose stamp itself is a messy one, they put old stamps on it and make the food dirty with their stamps, and you should see to it to buy food that costs less than is just as kosher. Now, for example, you have certain juices where with one brand name it runs much higher than a second brand name. You can buy the standard brands at cheaper prices, neither, by all means. Certain items, of course, unpacked, uncanned items that you have to know in separate halachas. We'll go have a quick rundown, try to cover everything today or possibly tomorrow. The items that are forbidden on Pesach. The vegetables that cannot be eaten on Pesach are asparagus, beans, broccoli, barley. This is cauliflower, mustard, mushrooms, garlic, peas. You live without this for 8 days, guaranteed. We cover it with rice. Rice, of course, is medicinal for us, right? Beer, various types of spices, peanuts, dried fruit, that means like even raisins would be delicatessen, of course, included the spices. The orange rind, the rind of an orange, is not to be used at all, because they use that to mix into food and cook, bake. And as far as children are concerned, infants, dextry maltose is a shayla. I got pepper too as a shayla. Shayla, so he's got to get one that's definitely with a good mashal. Maalox, something with Maalox is that important. It's that important because it has aluminum hydroxide, but you should get a substitute. You get that from breeder laboratories. The vast majority of cough medicines are no good. Succaril, which has been banned by the government because it's not kosher to Pesach. And Most tranquilizers cannot be used on Pesach. The best tranquilizer is a black banana. Puts you to sleep fastest. Ascorbic acid, another one of the fakes that they use with vitamin C. Mannitol, some people mannitol too is a life matter because it's an anti-spasmodic. And you could get a substitute for phenobarbital. Low sugar-coated tablets and cosmetics, most of them may be permissible for women. But you tell women to check it out, they look better without cosmetics. Why take chances with it? Why spend extra money for items like that on Pesach where the prices are exorbitant? Especially we find even toothpaste. Toothpaste is one of the items that's forbidden on Pesach. Even here we have the good, nice ones, good character. Put out toothpaste for Pesach that is kosher, but in an unfair sense. Because you cannot use toothpaste on the first days of Yom Tov and the last days of Yom Tov. You have it only on Chol Hamoed. And sometimes Chol Hamoed comes out on Shabbos. Not this year, but many times. So you have 2 or 3 days at the most you can use toothpaste. For this, we do you a favor and sell you kosher Pesach toothpaste in super family economy size. That's good for until next Pesach. I expect you to like them and buy their products during the year. Of course, it's very unfair. They should sell in 10-cent size, with the brush size, and that's it. But they don't. And that's why the best thing is to substitute for toothpaste to be used bicarbonated soda, which is kosher for Pesach, and which could also be used, if necessary, instead of Melox. So you have that as a substitute for both toothpaste and Melox. Long with bicarbonated soda. Shouldn't have to use that either. And these are some of the items that are also on Pesach. We'll take up those that are mutter mitzvah tomorrow. Spices. Of course, it's also. Now, you'll find a lot of these items we mentioned with hechsherim. They hechsher a very clear label on the package saying kosher Pesach. If you have that label, it's 100% kosher to eat the label. But the Torah, which will take up the rest of this, we can go to be mahadeh, not machmir not overdo the chumras, because chumras Yiseidos are also part of a klippah. Mahadeh the mitzvah, do the mitzvah right. Again, we pause with Hilchos Pesach for a moment, and we go Hilchos Shabbos moment. We go to Hilchos Pesach. We spoke before about those items that are forbidden on Pesach, types of vegetables, other items, medication, and we come to those that are permissible. In other words, we get the good news now. All kinds of fruits are allowed. There's no fruit that is usher for Pesach, except that fruit should be simply rinsed off, washed off, because sometimes they have a powdery substance on them. Keep them freshness must be washed off. Otherwise, fruit are all kosher. Beets, cabbage, carrots, cucumbers, celery, eggplant, green peppers. Green peppers is not the pepper that's used. Powdered pepper that's used for cooking, for eating. Green pepper is a regular vegetable. This is permissible, whereas we said regular pepper is sort of a spice, which is questionable. Onions, radishes, rhubarb being something like a rubble. Lemon, which of course is a fruit, but it's a special kind of a fruit, therefore it's mentioned specifically. Lettuce, naturally there are some who use lettuce for butter. It's a big shaila, but it is permissible for butter. That's a separate topic we'll have later on. Squash, spinach, that's those children who are bad for Pesach. Scallions, all kinds of melons, tomatoes, and turnips. These are the vegetables that are permissible. Now, the medications that are permissible, are permissible only if they are brand new boxes, containers. Any medication was opened before Pesach, it cannot be used on Pesach. Because there's no way to be sure of the fact that a drop of chametz had not fallen in inadvertently. So by copying this soda, it's kosher if it's a new box. Also, this can be used as toothpaste. Substitute the toothpaste, save bother expense of buying the large economy size of Pesach. Milk with magnesia, mineral oil, Epsom salt, aspirin, specifically beta aspirin, which is purer than others. They came up the rabbis to say this. But the fact that beta aspirin, for whatever reason, there's a certain superiority over others as far as purity goes, and therefore, if the person is going to use aspirin, preferably betas, until others can prove themselves. Saccharin is permissible. Oronates, of course, is oral medication for diabetics. And there it would be kosher. There are some people who are that desperate that it would be kosher even if it wasn't. Not pure Pesach, but Oronates is clear of any type of chametz. Or zebra. As far as tablecloths are concerned, plastic cloths, there was a shaila on plastics one time. It was resolved that plastic cloths are kosher only if they are brand new. New cloths, then they can be used. Or brand new, of course, for me, plastic cloths that were used from last Pesach were set aside in Pesach. Those cloths are permissible. A regular tablecloths could be used only with a cover over them. Because those items that came in direct contact with food, those who know, textiles are woven. You have the warp of the wood, the chassis of the end, the weave going both ways, and in between, look at a microscope, they find that there are little tiny holes, between this weave. Food that's on the table, it's brushed off, could be brushed into these holes, that become a fixture. So give a better texture to the cloth. It fills in the holes and the cloth feels much smoother, only because it has chametz in it. So no matter how much you wash it, of course you get out everything but. You might have a tiny fraction of an iota, and in Pesach there's no limit to the size, the shear of chametz. So therefore, these cloths that are washed out very solidly could be used, but they mustn't have a cover on top of it. You have to have another cloth on top, either a new tablecloth, a regular cloth, or a new plastic cloth. Not to use the chametz maker cloths for Pesach, uncovered. These are the items that cover practically most of the fields. We'll have more of this at the regular shiurim on Shabbos. The rest of the week we'll go back to Hilchos Shabbos. Starting next week, we'll take Hilchos Pesach straight through. Today we start learning the Hilchos Pesach in earnest. We always were in earnest. Today it's earnest, shall earnest. The week before Pesach, this week, of course, is Pesach is unique. It doesn't happen often. And Pesach comes out on Shabbos. So therefore, everything is moved forward. In certain senses, it's backwards. Move the end of Pesach itself as though it was Friday in certain respects, or Thursday in other respects. For example, the Badikas Chametz is moved one day forward, which means instead of end of Pesach, instead of the night of the 14th, the evening of the 14th of Nisan, the evening of the day before Pesach, we move it now back to Thursday night, Badikas Chametz, which is the evening of the 13th of Pesach. The same procedure applies, which means that the same Badikas Chametz is made with the bracha. After the Badika is over, you say Kol Chamina, same as usual. Eventually you cover up that chametz which you still intend to eat on Friday and Shabbos morning. Then on Friday morning, though it is not on Pesach, we go through the custom of burning the chametz. What is unique is the fact that after burning the chametz, we're still going to eat chametz after that. So for that reason, we do not say kol chamida, because the last kol chamida means that we're through with chametz for good until after Pesach. Here we're going to say kol chamida on Shabbos after we eat the chametz. As we mentioned very carefully, it is not possible under any conditions for a person to burn the chametz on Friday and say he's through with chametz. He's not going to eat any more chametz, period. And do without it. You cannot do without it. You must have Lacha Mishnah on Shabbos. You're not allowed to have matzah, so therefore it must be followed. This way, a person's hands are tied. So you cannot say Kol Chametz on Friday until after the real bittul of chametz comes after Shabbos morning. The fasting of the firstborn is done on Thursday morning, when we will have our siyum. And of course, this fasting on Thursday today, nowadays, people are that weak that everyone uses the excuse or the evasion by coming to a siyum, where someone in the shul makes a siyum on a Gemara, and with that siyum, those who partake in the siyum listen to the last words of the Gemara, are permitted to partake of the Sudas Mitzvah with the break the fast. This is made for siyum b'chayim. It's made for the firstborn. Now, to note, what is meant by a siyum? This is haga, because let us say that in the 9 days, it is very strict. You're not allowed to eat meat. 9 days from the Shchedish of until Tisha B'Av. Those days you're not allowed to eat meat, because there are some who don't eat meat even for 3 weeks, which was with Thomas. Those days when you don't eat meat, and there, the din says too, that if a person makes a siyum for the Gemara, then the Sudas Mitzvah is so big that he's allowed to have meat at that meal. But that person can have meat at the meal is understood, but even those who are invited to the meal too can have meat. And there, however, it says that you cannot do it as we do Tanis B'Chayim. Here, every person walks in from the street, joins the siyum. 9 days, it is only those who are really close friends to this person making the siyum, the ones who ordinarily would come to the siyum, plus, if the siyum would have come out on these 9 days. It worked out that way. But if he finishes the Gemara weeks before and waits with the last lines for 9 days, that is illegal. However, here, it is legal. Here it's not that strict, so a person could make the siyum, work it out to come out at Pesach, as we all do. In this case, not at Pesach, it's Thursday before Pesach. And at the siyum, all those who come in are permitted to partake in it, all the firstborn b'chayim, and to be exempt from fasting. Now, another question is, what constitutes a siyum? What must the person finish? He has to finish a certain unit of learning in order to be considered a Sudas Mitzvah. Feast or a mitzvah where you're allowed to break a fast. What does he have to learn? Is it enough, let's say, to learn a Parshas Chumash? It's enough to say to learn a whole Sedra. It's enough to finish the 5 Chumash. Learn Chumash, finish the 5 Chumash, that considered a seed. Or is it enough, let's say, to learn a Parak Mishnayos, or a whole Gemara, a whole Masechta Mishnayos, or a Seder Mishnayos? Is it enough to learn a Masechta Ketana, a small Masechta, which is not included in Shas? There are certain small Masechtas, a whole group of Masechtas, very tiny ones, just paragraphs each, which are outside of Shas. They're outside them. Or, in addition to regular Shas, there's the small ones that were not included in the sphere of Shas itself. So all these cases we mentioned are not considered as a siyum. A legal siyum, it is a siyum, fine, a person finished his svarim, but it's not considered enough, important enough, to permit a person to break a fast for it. The requirement for a regular siyum is simply to finish a Masechta Gemara. It is possible, of course, that the person finishing, let's say, the entire Zaydik Kaddish is entitled to make a siyum too, just as on the Gemara, because after all, Zaydik Kaddish is like the same Tanoim as comprised the Gemara. Arizal probably because one of the fluency, I believe, on the Zaydik Kodesh, speaking about the Shaila, makes a very lengthy discussion of the Shaila of the Halischa, the Sefer Torah, how to write the Sefer Torah. Even say Aharon never saw the inside of the Sefer Torah. There's letters that Nun. The Nun is inverted, an inverted Nun. The question of Halacha is what kind of an inverted Nun is to be used? Is it to be upside down or inside out, facing the other way? In other words, the opening that gives the Shalom should face the right instead of the left. This Charlotte brought Chatzvi, and he brings from one of the Yishonim, one of the biggest Yishonim, he won't mention his name, and he brings a very harsh Yishonis, very harsh language about this Aharon, who does not accept the words of the Zaydik Kodesh. The Yishonis are very harsh. He says that this Aharon doesn't accept the Zaydik Kodesh. For what reason? Because he feels it's not as strong an authority as the Gemara. Chatzvi says, I challenge this Aharon to tell me, where do you find a parak in Shas, in all of Shas, without the Shimei Arizal mentioned in it? It's his Lashon. Challenge him to find a parak in Shas. Shimei Arizal, who was the author of the Zaydik Kodesh. So therefore, at least, the Halacha is at least, surely the Zaydik Kodesh is equals to the Gemara, because it's the same rabbis are found in the Zaydik Kodesh as in the Gemara. Shimei Arizal is Chavraya. Plus, of course, you find more. You find Moshe Feinstein himself, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, lessons kiruv from the Sifta de Vikia, from the heavenly yeshiva. These are more advanced, but at least the Zaydik Kodesh is considered equal to the Gemara. So therefore, surely the Siyum of the Zaydik Kodesh would be considered the Siyum on a Masechta at least. These Siyums require an actual Siyum. First of all, and those who attend can get credit by it. Again, this year is unique because those attending the Siyum here will for the first time not be attending a Siyum, but will be making a Siyum. Everyone here will be making a Siyum because we, Baruch Hashem, was able to learn through a whole Masechta and make a Siyum together. So it won't be one person making a Siyum and the rest listening. Who's that one person? The same as all the rest of the people. We're all alike. We're all equal. All equal rights, all take part in the Siyum together, making a united Siyum together, but of course will benefit the firstborn. The others are allowed to eat anyhow. The Chayim could eat after the Siyum. The Tainus becomes void. As he mentioned too, the Shaila is who is considered a Bechayim? Who is considered a firstborn? There are different laws about firstborn. Firstborn could be, let us say that a man has two wives. Not that he has simultaneously, to the Sfardi, but a regular normal person has two wives. He has one wife first, and then he either divorces that wife, he shelves her, or he buries her. She dies. But he does dispose of her, legally. Then he marries a second wonderful, and he finds himself now with children from both wives, sons. Now the first son of the first wife is called a Bechor Me'ov, the firstborn son to the father. It's his firstborn son, the first he produced. The one from the second wife plus the first is called a Bechor Me'ev, the first one that the woman produced. What is the difference between these two Bechors? The Bechor to a father, Bechor to a mother. Bechor to a father is one who is privileged. He's sort of the master of the house. He takes over after the father. Legally, in the sense that his inheritance is double that of any of the other sons, according to the law of the Torah. Of course, Al Pi Kabbalah, so the Aruch Zohar is continued into this son more than any of the other children. That's not what we're referring to now to Bechor. So therefore, the firstborn of Bechor to a father receives the Pishnayim, double inheritance. Bechor to a mother has a din of pidyon habed. Let us say that a woman has two husbands. Right? And she marries one, and then if she has a son, of course, she has a firstborn son, she has a pidyon ben. Then, this husband dies, she marries a second husband who never married yet. The man who never married marries a widow. This is very clever. The man who never married marries a widow. The Gemara says is digging his own grave. So he marries this widow, and she gives birth to a son. This son is his first son, which means that this son will inherit double from his father. But this son does not have a pidyon ben. Oh, it's the first son that he produced. It's his first son. There's no pidyon ben because it's not the first-born son to this woman. Pidyon ben means the first one coming from this woman. So both of these, however, are considered b'chayr as far as seeing b'chayr, tenes b'chayr. And of Pesach, a first-born son, whether it's first-born to the mother and father together, or whether it's the father alone, or the mother alone, must fast. Even that person who does not have a din of b'chayr, pidyon ben, like the son of a kohen or a Levi, or a kind of Levi who have a first-born son and not have a pidyon ben, still he too is included in this din. He must fast because this refers only to the firstborn sons in Egypt who were killed. So that firstborn sons there, regardless of who they were, plus there were no Ganem Levim among the Egyptians, but there were no exceptions either. The Shaila is brought though from English whether the firstborn daughters are considered firstborn. Do they have to fast? Are they required to attend the Sudas Mitzvah in order to meet the validity? The Bach asks that they are required because the letter says that the firstborn daughters were killed. We go by who was killed. The rest of the posek say, and this is the Halacha, that they are exempt because of the fact that the word b'chayr does not apply to a woman, female. There is no din of b'chayr whatsoever in any respect, any kind of respect to a female, and therefore, since no din of b'chayr, they are exempt from this tenes b'chayr. This takes place this year on Thursday morning, immediately after davening. And that's for Thursday morning. Thursday night, B'dikas Chametz. Friday morning, we come to the Biyur Chametz, the burning of the Chametz. We'll discuss this next year, Hashem. We wish to arouse everyone, to awaken, and to arouse everyone to the fact that the real B'dikas Chametz, if you want to search for the Chametz, which means that which is sour, spoiled, evil, this means the Chametz that's found in a person's heart, the Zohar. Search out, to beer, to destroy, to eradicate, to eliminate, wipe out completely this chametz, the evil of the heart. This requires the b'dika with the light of a candle. And as the pasuk says, the mitzvah b'tayla oil. Candle is the mitzvah. The mitzvah the person does, tayla oil. Tayla is the light which lights this candle. The combination of these two mitzvah, tayla mitzvahs, one weapon, a mighty weapon, destroying this Zohar, this chametz in the heart. Especially now, this week, concentrate very, very heavily. Because this is the week, like R Arizal revealed that this is the week in which Mashiach is coming. So, week before Pesach. Let us add to our tefillas very strongly. Daven, one word, the key word, Mashiach. Add to these tefillas, you don't know how much is necessary yet. There's a certain amount of tefillas necessary to bring Mashiach. Throughout the past few thousand years in which these tefillas have been sent heavenwards, there have been many great tzaddikim, far greater than we are infinitesimal comparison. However, if the amount of tefillas is mountainous, on top of these mountains you need a tiny fraction of an inch to complete the mountain, still we could be that tiny fraction of an inch. Those few tefillas to complete this necessary number of tefillas could be, will be, we will complete it. Let's be strong, intensify our tefillas, to see with our eyes this year. Now, coming in Mashiach, Vinyan Beis Hamikdash, which will be built at the heavenly speed, built by Hashem, the flash of fire. Hashem said, I set fire to the Beis Hamikdash, I sent the enemies in to destroy it. I, Hashem, will rebuild this Beis Hamikdash with fire. This fire will be instantaneous. One moment in time is literally become revealed to heaven. We will enter to bring our Klal Pesach this year. Hashem, Pesach, Tikuney Zohar, the name of Kashri. It is customary that before Pesach there are many who cannot afford or do not wish to have that many sets of silverware or pots. So it is permissible to kosher silverware, pots and pans, certain kinds of dishes, and actually kosher them, transform them from chametz to Pesach. Just the same process as you would if, let's say, a pot became treif, something treif fell into it, the entire pot became treif, it was cooked in it, and you want to kosher it, there is a way of koshering a pot. This is called hagolah. In some cases it requires libun, in some cases it requires docha, and so on. The cases are, first of all, there are certain kelim, certain utensils that cannot be kashered under any conditions. For example, earthenware, glassware cannot be kashered. They become treif. You cannot boil them, boiling water, because we are afraid that they will crack. Put this kind of earthenware or glassware in boiling water and it may crack. Therefore, we're afraid that the person will hesitate to make the water hot enough. Therefore, kashering does not help with this kind of kelim. Even if a person would say, I am willing to take the risk, I'll put it into fire. If it cracks, I'm willing to lose it. More than boiling water. It does not help, because once the chachamim, anything zayda, no kashering for these kelim, nothing a person can do to change that. A very important rule in the zayda chachamim. Now there are certain items that require burning in fire, kashering in fire itself. And the simple rule is that that which was used in actual fire, used, let's say, as a broiler, used as a spit under the fire, that cannot be kashered by putting into boiling water. That requires kashering through fire itself. And that item which was used all year, boiling water, used as a pot to cook in, or silverware that was used with items that were cooked, then that can be kashered in boiling water. That's called hagolah. It's important to know how to do this. It's very simple, but important to know exactly how to do it, because many times during the year you may have this problem come up. You happen to stick a dairy fork into a meat pot. You or the one who take care of the cooking, this does happen in the best of homes. By oversight, the person is in a hurry, they grab the fork to get to look at what it is. The design looks the same. They put it inside the meat pot and they find that they did the wrong thing, and of course it presents a big problem which requires a shaila. You have to ask. Now if, don't judge by yourself, but if, let's say the answer to the shaila is that whatever happened to the pot and the meat, meanwhile the fork at least has to be kashered, and the process is by boiling up water in a pot and having that water reach a real boil, which means there are bubbles on the surface of the water. Only when there are bubbles on the surface of the water, only then is that water kosher for kashering any kind of utensils or silverware. You then drop this fork into that water while the water is bubbling. Quickly remove the fork. It's there just for a few seconds. Remove the fork with a pair of pliers or prongs. put it under running cold water immediately, and that what becomes kosher, 100% kosher. And there's one requirement, though, and that is basic requirement which we cannot do without. There's no compromise. There are two items you're using. You're using the pot in which you're boiling the water. You're using the tray for item which you're going to kasher now. Both of those items, the pot and the utensil being kosher, must be items that are unused for a period of at least 24 hours. The pot could not have been used and had to be clean and unused 24 hours, and the tray for item cannot be kosher until 24 hours have elapsed. Of course, first it must be cleaned off, and then let 24 hours elapse, and then kasher it. This way, the kashering takes effect. We'll have more to do about this manan. We should be zeichet to kasher ourselves, purify ourselves in our hearts before Pesach. Zeichet to see now the coming of Mashiach, the coming of Beis Hamikdash. May it be very good. First Pesach, Dinei Hagolah, Dinei of kashering kelim. Any kind of a metal keli, said, or stone, could be a solid material, could be kosher, maybe kosher. But the person must first be careful to see that it's the keli alone, there's nothing on top of it. You have, for instance, a paste of some kind, some food coagulated, stuck to the keli. You cannot kosher that. This person be clean completely. Like the Gemara says, the posek Arizal, but certain things cannot be kosher, certain things are broken, but gold, silver, metal, the Gemara says, what's but? But means only the keli, not anything on top of it. If there's rust on the keli, the rust must be removed till it's smooth with the rest of the keli. Then it may be kosher. If there's a discoloration in the metal itself because of the rust that accumulated before, smooth now, the discoloration remains, that does not hinder. Now, he said there's a difference between kelim that are used in fire and kelim that are used in water, cooking. Kelim that's used in fire requires kashering in fire itself. For example, a spit, which is used under the fire, boiler. When you kasher out a Pesach, you must burn it out in fire. A cutlery that's used in dishes, cookware, that can be kasher by cooking. Gola means to kasher in boiling water. The question is about the problem of kashering that which requires fire. So the kashering is to remove the isam, remove that which is trade, from the keli through this fire. The Gemara says that naturally, if a keli is nivla, has absorbed isur through fire, it must be burnt out. What happens if the keli has absorbed heter, something which is permissible? You want to remove that item which is permissible. Then, does it require fire or not? Why would you want to remove it? Because later on, the absorption became forbidden. For example, a korban is kosher, may be eaten only for a day or two, depending upon the type of korban. As soon as that time has expired, the korban, the meat of the korban becomes nisar. This means it remains past the prescribed time, becomes usr. The person has broken it in of leaving the meat over past the time. You had that in the Marmakis issue, if you recall. Now, so that's called a lav, anitak, le'asay. So let's say cedar was the lav. Do not leave any meat over. But there's no malchus for it, because if you did leave it over, there's a way to rectify it by that which is left over, burn in fire. That's how you clear up the lav. Now, let's take that nisa. You have the spit on which the korban was, the knife which the korban was shot. That knife shot the korban. So that knife now has received an absorption of this meat. kosher meat is covered. That knife remains overnight. It now has an absorption of Nesar. Because as soon as the night was over, the meat that's absorbed in the sword, in the knife, becomes Nesar, and becomes Asr. So, and this was used over fire. So, the shaila is, what do we consider this kind of absorption? What did it absorb? Did it absorb Heter or Isser? The fact that right now it is Nesar, true, but at the time that it absorbed it, it was Heter. So therefore, what do we have to remove from this knife? Heter or Isser? It is now also that the time that it absorbed it was Heter. We say that we consider this a lighter deed. In this case, of course, the fact that it absorbed Heter, so in order to remove it, we don't need fire, we can use Hagala, ashering water. Of course, the fact that it absorbed Heter, though it became Isser, at the time of absorption it was Heter, therefore a lighter kind of kashering through Hagala is permissible. Now the question comes up, then what about chametz? Either keli absorbed chametz, at the time of absorption before Pesach, it was Heter. On Pesach, or at Pesach, becomes Isser, and Isser chametz. So is it the same as the absorption of kosher korban? Kosher becomes Nesar. Same way too, it was kosher food, it becomes chametz now. Or is this different? The answer is it is different. Because there, when the korban was absorbed, it was pure meat and nothing else. There was no trace of any kind of Isser. There was no such word as Nesar at the time. Nesar was created after it remained overnight. Here, when this keli absorbed chametz, it absorbed chametz. It was chametz. The same word chametz applied to it. There was no change in this item. It was chametz, but it was permissible at the time. Since it was heter, but chametz, it remained. The same word chametz remained before and after. This chametz was there. It awakened to an Isser afterwards, but not changed. It wasn't altered from one item to the second. Here, you can change it from kosher to Nesar. Thereby, chametz, it wasn't chametz, it remained chametz, only the time made it awesome. In a case like that, this says, the Yaakov says that this is different, and therefore it's considered as though it was Beleah that absorbed Isser. That's the basic reason why, in the case of chametz, if the keli was Beleah chametz, through fire, not enough to kasher it in water, but it requires hechsher through fire. To inject some of that to purify the alahad, and every type of chametz, Nesar, Isser, the India should be in this. See now, yes, tzadik. Experience now the way it makes mikdash. So have to bring the components now. The heat comes is unknown. One item was very controversial, and the thing was talking about Shemar, and later on in Peskim, Shonim and Achleinim. To this day, of course, we have two separate worlds. Jews divided into two parts, two distinctly separate divisions. So find on this issue on Pesach, the eating of egg matzahs, which is a very popular food, but very mistakenly they marketed in America for the average Jew, which is wrong. Because egg matzahs are not to be on Pesach. Egg matzahs can be before Pesach, after Pesach. Egg matzahs either on Pesach or on Tisha B'Av, which come out the same day. The first day of Pesach and the same day of Tisha B'Av. Only the Sfardim, which means the Oriental Jews, which come from the Orient, China and so forth, they are allowed, the Syrians, the Arabics, they are allowed to eat egg matzahs on Pesach. We said this is not a new debate. This is old. It's in the Gemara, this question, and then he should follow this line of debate. So we have these two parties to the debate that lasts to this day. And we have to know, definitely, that for us, egg matzahs is a forbidden item. course, there is one exception. It says, Ramah says that if a person is very old, very sick, that's for sure, can't eat the regular matzahs, then he may partake of egg matzahs. But this shows how wrong it is. This shows that if any Jew eats egg matzahs, he's very sick. So at least we should know to separate ourselves from this Isur, this very sad, tragic era that has overtaken the local Jewry. Also, rice. Eating of rice, according to the Sfardim, is permissible. It's a low machlekes, and for us, rice is forbidden for Pesach. Another problem is milk. Cow's milk, cow juice, which has a potential issa to it on Pesach, because whatever the cow eats goes into the milk. Now, the cow eats chametz, and of course the milk will contain some degree of chametz. Therefore, what is advisable, there are of course some places who say that you still drink milk on Pesach. Pesach means, of course, chal hamayim only. You're not allowed to drink milk, eat milchiks for the first 2 days of Pesach when there is a kiruv of Yom Tov, eat only, leishiks only, no milchiks. But for chal hamayim, or for children who have to drink milk, then some say you're allowed and some say not. The best way is to buy your milk before Pesach. Kosher milk, of course, holy before Pesach, and then, even if there might have been some kind of a tidal ways, to bottle together with other tzirufim, other hatayim, is permissible. One solution is buy enough before Pesach, put it into a very cold section of your refrigerator where it will last till the end of Chalamayim. That would solve the problem. We should be zecher to solve all our problems, especially for the entire Am Yisrael. Zecher now. There is still time. There is still time. It will come to pass. We will see coming of Mashiach now. Zecher to see the Binyan Beis Mikdash, to come Pesach, which we will participate in. This Chag Pesach, we should leave everything.
Type of wine should be good wine, better quality, the best quality is available. However, aside from the quality, there's also a mitzvah of color. There are red wines and there are white wines. White wines, there are dry wines, and there are sweet wines. Best wine is the red wine. That's a memory of the blood of the Jews in order to slaughter the Jewish children. Then when the blood that was spilled, we drink this red wine. It's a memory of that blood. So therefore, the mitzvah of Chatila is to have red wine, aside from the fact too that there's a posek in Mishlei which says that the yain is red. The real wine is red wine. There are certain places, times, if one is known, you have the vicious anti-Semitic countries, governments, people, so they make alilas down, false accusations against Jews that they use the blood of goyim to mix their mitzvahs with wine. So there is, of course, advisable to use the other kind of wine. Wine is known from such places. The mitzvah chatila is to use red wine for the four places. There are points that you dip this kind of Pesach. The first one is karpas, in salt water. That karpas really is to use celery, parsley, or I'm going to use cucumber. Then you go for the dipping is done with a tiny piece. Much less than the size of a shear. Which means about the size of a dime or so is enough. Second dipping is done with butter. That is the homemade lettuce, different types of bitter herbs. But the best thing is horseradish ground. The horseradish ground up should be when it's not ground, or if it's freshly ground, its shock is so strong that it contains a poison in it. Poison in the sense that it's that sharp, it can burn a person's insides out, sharper than tequila. So in order to ease it, after grinding it, you spread it out and let the air out a little so that the sharpness comes out. However, not too much, because if you let it stay for a long time, and it actually dies completely, there's no bitterness left. This is to have some bitterness. You have to do it enough to let the sharpness come out. Shouldn't be too much to take. So you can leave a little drop. This is dipped in charesis. Charesis is a special mixture. It should be done preferably before Pesach begins. Which means in this case before Shabbos. Two things should be prepared before Shabbos. Those are the Zayah, the shank bone should be broiled before Shabbos. There's no way to broil that. We could broil it, of course, Saturday night, but then you have a problem about eating it. So, in essence, there is no broiled meat allowed on the Seder nights. It means you have to be sure to eat that Zayah the next day before the day is over. Rather than get yourself tied up with that, you have to make a new next night. Best thing is to prepare it before Shabbos, and also prepare the charesis before Shabbos, and that way there's no Shabbos comes out. Zecher to celebrate this Pesach, still for this Pesach celebrate the Shani Lakesh, the Brainy Korban Pesach, the Pesach now Pesach. Continue with Yochas Pesach. Menachem is Shabbos HaGadol, also Erev Pesach, one of the years when this comes out this way. And of course we haven't got the regular halachas of Erev Pesach. Well, the one halacha we do have, which says that Erev Pesach is not supposed to go to work. So Menachem is with the universal for all Jews, are not supposed to go to work. The preparation for the Seders should be made partially today. Especially the broiling of the zraya and the charesis made today. Also the grinding of the horseradish. This, if possible, make it today so you'll save time. Tomorrow night you go straight to the Seder. When you do that, you have to make sure that the horseradish is locked up in a jar so that it doesn't ooze out. Bitterness doesn't ooze out, and it becomes completely void. It dies, which makes it void as far as Mora is concerned. The charesis is a thick memory of the submit that the Jews had to make in Mitzrayim, and the combination of actually different types of fruits, apples, figs, dates. This is because Rav Sukkah would show that's what the Jews are called. Sukkah Shirashirim, and ground nuts, so forth. These are all made into a cement-like pudding. This is what the Buddha is dipped into. Now, there are some, of course there's a din, absolutely you're not allowed to eat matzah Erev Pesach. So that you want to enter into the evening with an appetite, same appetite of matzah. Also, if you know the custom written on most calendars that on Shabbos HaGadol, they do not say Bachi Nafshi or Shira Malas. Instead, it says we say Avodim Vayidu in the Haggadah till just about around Dayenu. So this is said on Shabbos HaGadol, it's preparation for the Seder. This is something which depends upon minute, although most places can say it. Minute is to say it, but the living that I've seen is not to say it, the Dafka, and this is the Dafka mentioned in the Gil. The Arizal says, Yacham Aviyah Yoim, and Mahim Aviyah Mahu. What do you have? I would think you're supposed to have it on that day. It says on before, which means that you're supposed to have a separation to show a Chiddush. Why don't you eat matzah Erev Pesach? With a relevant appetite. Supposed to come to the Seder and look forward to saying Palavino is something new. As a Chiddush, something you enjoy, you look forward to it.
if you already said it Shabbos HaGadol, it's already, the novelty is gone. That's why there are some that's not to say I wasn't eating Erev Shabbos. That is on Shabbos HaGadol, the Shabbos before Pesach. But in a sense, of course, it's easier. Have more time to learn or to sleep, whatever it is. That is our bidding. For the Zeraya and the egg on the Seder plate, we'll have this more tomorrow, Shabbos HaGadol, the Zeraya and the egg are a memory of the two karbonos in Pesach. The Korban Pesach, especially for Pesach, and the Korban Chagiga, which is a Korban Yontif, special Korban Yontif every Yontif. This Korban Pesach must be broiled meat, therefore the Zeraya is broiled. The Korban Chagiga is a Shiloh broiled otherwise. There, or say it's optional, there we use the egg to cook. There is a machlekes cooked or broiled. Big discussion on that. We'll have that Shulchan. But again, our bidding is, according to the Arizal, the Arizal's bidding Halacha, that, of course, this is also difficult to tell. In the Shulchan, they quote the Arizal's kind of, when it says the egg is cooked, dafka. They searched high and wide for this, because that word with Rushelis is missing. They quote the whole long passage of Seder Kaida, quoting the Arizal word for word, verbatim. In the Kriyas Chaim, the Sefer HaKavonis, the word with Rushelis is missing. But you take their word for it. That's, because this is the custom. This is what all the places can quote, that the egg should be cooked and not broiled. Because if it's broiled, it's very inedible afterwards. It's more likely, of course, because you say you should broil it. But again, the custom is, for the sake of competition, we have these two, which are Tzreya is broiled and the egg is cooked. So the rest of the cattle will take up the Shabbos HaGadol. I'm still looking forward to being in Eretz Yisrael, Beis HaMikdash, we've got Pesach. How? Well, the whole Gula is a miracle. We'll look forward to possibly a miracle in the Gula Shlema. Again we said, now this year, even though it says that Mashiach and Erev Shabbos, but Hashem wants to perform miracles where Erev Shabbos stops, time stops, the sun stops. It stopped for Moshe Feinstein, it stopped for Yeshua, stop for the Goyim, it'll stop for Mashiach too. We'll have the Gula Shlema now, we'll Pesach, we'll have to see the many Pesach Shehad. Hilchos Pesach, during the Yom of Pesach, the Seder of Davening, during Chol Hamoed, these days of Chol Hamoed, the Seder of Davening is, we daven the weekday Shemona Esrei. Of course, we include the three items Menachem Mendel and the same Beracha, Yalav Yavai. In this case, the food is different than the Shchedesh. And the Shchedesh, if you forget Yalav Yavai to Ma'ariv, you do not repeat the Shemona Esrei. Chol Hamoed, you forget any one of these three items, either one of the three, any of the three, whether they're told, or the same Beracha, or Yalav Yavai, Shemona must be repeated, whether it is Shachas, Mincha, or Ma'ariv. After Shemona Esrei and Shachas, we say Hallel. This is the one Yom Tov where we say half Hallel. The one Yom Tov in the entire year. Shavuos, Sukkos, we say the whole Hallel. For the first 2 days of Pesach, the Hallel. The last 6 days of Pesach, it's the 4 days of Chol Hamoed, plus the last 2 days of Pesach, we say half Hallel. The reason is, we notice that because the last 2 days, that is time of Kriyas Yamsuf, speak about 2 days, of course, in Eretz Yisrael is only one last day. Since we hope we become Eretz Yisrael citizens very shortly, we got to start thinking that way, along those lines. But temporarily, very temporarily, we have now 2 days of Pesach at the end of the 7th and 8th day. The 7th day says Mana Kriyas Yamsuf. The Gemara says that it's a big simcha for the Jew, but it was not a simcha for Hashem yet, because Hashem makes others happy with the defeat, the downfall of Goyim. Since they are the creation of Hashem, it is not a simcha to Hashem himself, Kaviyachol. Since there's no simcha, therefore we have Hallel, and since 7th and 8th day, which are a major holiday, we say we have Hallel then, so surely Hallel.